and just like kind of like shake off the jibby jibbies, whatever you want to call them, the ooty booties. I don't know what you want to call them, but just shake off the bad mojo or the negative energy, and then reapproach the dice.
Casino trip, full of chips. Wanna flip, double it.
Welcome to the Full of Chips podcast, the only chips you'll never lose, where the stakes are high, the takes are bold, and the conversations are always full of chips. With your hosts, Chris the Dice Degen and Craig from Old Bay Craps, you're tuned in to Full of Chips, the podcast where we dive into our experiences gambling and stories straight from the casino floor. Whether you're a seasoned pro at the craps table or just curious what the buzz is about, you're in the right place. Each week, we break down the games, talk to the experts, and bring you tips that could tilt the odds in your favor. So grab your lucky charm, stack your chips, and let's roll into today's episode. What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of the Full of Chips podcast, the only chips you'll never lose. Chris the Dice Degen here with my co-host, Craig from Old Bay Craps. Craig, how we doing today?
We're doing all right, man. I mean, coming off of the last episode, which was great, finally get this thing started. So welcome back, everybody. Welcome to episode 2. I mean, we're here to talk about, can you handle the pressure? Can you handle it, Chris?
I don't know. Sometimes it might get to you. We'll see. I mean, all I'm thinking about right now is I think it's a Queen song, that Under Pressure. I got that little jingle going in the back of the head right now because
There you go.
my dad used to play that a lot when I was a kid, and he loved Queen a lot. So
Hey, bring in the music references. I like it. I don't know as much music as maybe you do when it comes to, I don't know. I stopped listening to a good bit of music in the 90s. I just listened to movie scores and, still watching movies in the 90s and thousands. But um, my references of music really go back to the 80s and the late 70s.
okay, all right. So you'll bring the movie expertise, and maybe I'll bring some of the music expertise, just because a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, I'm a younger guy, right?" I'll make the age reference yet again because why not, right? Someone's going to say something about it. But played a lot of music trivia and stuff growing up with my dad and like his buddies and stuff. They play a game where they like play 3 beats of a song, and they have to name what the tune is.
Well, if you want me to go back to nostalgia land and TV in front, like I said, I grew up in front of a television. I used to watch a game show called Name That Tune, and people would name that tune and try to name it in 2 notes. One note was very, very bold, but I can do it sometimes.
Nice, nice. So yeah, we got the music, we got the movies covered, and all the references. Hopefully, we'll get them right. If not, I'm sure the YouTube, Spotify, Apple audience will fact check us left and right. But it's all right. We're here to fact check ourselves, and if they have to fact check us, they can fact check us. We can take a little bit of credit when we're right. We can take some criticism when we're wrong, and I think both of us can take a little bit of pressure when we're in the casino.
We can take some pressure, and if anybody has any feedback about any of our episodes, please email us at fullofchipspodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. Comment on the videos. That'd be great too. We'll be sure to comment back. Sometimes you'll like what we have to say. Sometimes you may not like what we have to say, but we will say something. But before we get started, Chris, what are you drinking this evening?
What am I drinking? Well, I must say, so I was at a party before this, so I was drinking a little bit at the party, and I had to stop because I was driving. And always be safe, never drink and drive. My
That's right.
last drink prior to driving was 3 hours before I actually operated a motor vehicle, and I only had like 2 drinks when I was there, so nothing crazy. But I'm drinking a little Fresca right now. No promo, but a Fresca. If you want to be a promo, I mean, let me know. Love me a good Fresca. What are you drinking today, Craig?
We'd be glad to have them as a sponsor. As per our top 5 list in episode 1, top 5 liqueurs, this is number 2, I believe. This is the Jim Beam Peach with Arnold Palmer.
There you go. That's a good combo. I can definitely see that. Nothing like a good little peach tea.
I had enough Diet Coke earlier today.
It's funny. We both like the Diet Coke. Is Diet Coke is that a choice for you, or you like Diet Coke better than regular Coke?
Well, what's funny is that my choice is really Pepsi. I'm a Pepsi guy. I've always been a Pepsi guy, kid growing up. People that drink Coke, whatever. I like Pepsi. It's sweeter. But no, my daughter has a boyfriend who drinks Diet Coke, so we keep Diet Coke on tap now. So I was like, you know what? We're at a party. It's a graduation party. They have soda. I saw the Diet Coke, went for it, and then I was like, let's go.
There you go. Yeah, I'm a big Diet Coke fan, but mine is allergy based, so I can't drink any regular soda. So if you ever see me drinking soda, it's always diet, zero. And people are, oh, because you're watching your figure, like I'm a skinny girl. Nah, that's not why. I'm allergic to high fructose corn syrup.
Oh my God, you must be allergic to a lot of stuff that makes kids
Yep.
go nuts.
Yep, I can't have it, so that's why you'll never see me drink any regular sodas unless they're made with real sugar, but hard to find sometimes. I just diet is a choice for me because of that. It's just easier. So whenever I'm going for a soda, it's going to be diet or zero, just because I don't have to even worry about checking what the ingredient profile looks like.
Well, if we're at the craps table, I certainly don't want you drinking anything that's going to affect your throw.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Should we dive into our setups a little bit today?
Let's do
We
so.
touched on them a little bit.
Yeah, why don't you start with you had mentioned last week about your 12-foot craps table behind you.
Yeah, yeah. So behind me, for those who are listening to the audio of this, I am moving out of camera frame a little bit so people can see the table behind me. But I do have a 12-foot regulation casino grade table from John Huxley. So it was not in a casino formerly. It was just in someone's house. But I did purchase it after a buddy told me that there was one for sale. So I did purchase it. 12-foot table, though, I do like it a lot. It definitely helps with practice and from the throwing perspective, from the betting perspective. But with the setup, right? And I know, Craig, you're going to touch on this a little bit because I know you don't have a 12-foot table. So you're going to talk about your setup. But I did have throwing stations when I was starting out, and when I first started my channel, when I first started learning how to play craps and stuff, I did have a throwing station. So tell us a little about your throwing station, and then I'll get into mine since I've graduated to a full-size table now.
Well, with a throwing station, I still throw off of sometimes this little Black and Decker stand. Um, Hey, it works. It's the same. It's about 28 inches off the ground, which is the same as the level of the craps table on the bottom of a tub. So it's a really, it gives me that real feel of being able to throw from, and I can change the distance, you know, whether I want to do 12 foot, 14 foot, because we see a lot of 14-foot tables in Atlantic City at Harrah's. Um, I think Tropicana does have 12-foot tables. I noticed last time I was there. But as I don't really have a real craps table. I had a makeshift craps table, and it's only 10 feet long. But what people saw on my channel is they see the cameras over top, so it looks like a real craps table because it is a real craps layout. But as you know, recently we've been kind of switching over to Blackjack, and so I wanted to make room for a Blackjack layout. So what did Old Bay Craps do? He cut his table in half. So what used to be two 5-foot tables underneath the craps layout, I took one of the tables and made a Blackjack, which I have right here in front of me. And then, as you can see behind me, people who know my channel, yep, I took scissors to my layout, which is like, oh my God, like it was almost like cutting hair off of Samson and Delilah, now I have no powers, I guess. But, now I cut it down to like a 6-foot table, but I can use the Black & Decker stand to go from any distance I want, whether I want to be stick left or stick right to practice my throwing. And I can still do videos off of it. And I've got a little bit of a rail on the one side for stick left side. But now I've got craps and Blackjack, and this is the new backdrop.
Very, very nice. So in the Old Bay studio, we have a craps table and we have a blackjack table. That's sweet. I love it. I love it. Yeah, we in the Degen dungeon here, we don't have an official blackjack table. I do have blackjack layouts that I'll, put out sometimes on, just like you said, right, like a folding table. Maybe one day if fiance Degen will allow the Degen dungeon to grow a little bit further. My brain is concocting plans for what the true dungeon will look like. But for now, we'll just keep they'll keep the 12-foot craps table. Luckily, she lets me have that in the house. She's a real champ for that. We have half of mine is crapless and the other half is standard craps. So I have a custom felt on my table. I have half crapless, half standard traditional craps. So I can practice both ways. I can throw from both sides of the table, but I have the option of having both layouts, which is nice. I don't have many crapless tables available to me, but in the event that I do have a crapless table, I am able to practice on one here and, shoot some videos and do some other stuff. Yeah, blackjack table is probably coming in the near future. Like I said, I do have the layouts and, we'll set something up here. Yeah, having a real table is nice. I know, Craig, I know you have a really nice throwing station. I will say, like, a lot of you probably don't know what goes into Craig's throwing station there, but it's not just the typical throwing station. It's really like an actual table that is maybe not an official casino table like behind me, but it's almost as
Right.
close as you can get to an official casino table.
No, and before the table was only 30 inches wide, which is not nowhere near the width of an actual table, which I believe is almost 4 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to, when we had the happy accident, and maybe we'll go in that in another episode. It actually widened the table to 3 feet wide, so I actually gained more space, and I can deal from both sides still. So that was important to
Nice.
me. Um,
Nice. Very nice.
so do you have a preference between crapless and traditional?
To play, not necessarily. I don't love playing crapless unless I am playing with a group of people who like to throw outside numbers and horns. Otherwise, I'm not a huge fan of crapless just because there is no dark side. And I'm not saying that I'm a dark side player by any stretch because I am not. I will occasionally play the dark side, but on a crapless table, there is nowhere really to run to if the light side is not working out. So I'm not a huge fan of crapless. I do like playing crapless every once in a while, but if I had to choose between standard or crapless, I would pick a standard layout and play on a standard table more often than not. However, again, like I said, if I'm playing with a group of people who like to throw the outsides and like to throw horns, then
Right.
certainly I'll play on a crapless table because there's a lot of opportunity there.
I think what's interesting is that you're in a little bit of a conundrum because, you know, you tend to throw a lot of sixes and you tend to throw a lot of ace deuces. So whether you're a traditionalist or you're a crapless player, Chris is your guy. He's going to get you your inside numbers. He's going to get you your outside numbers.
Yeah, I mean, they happen a lot. The ace deuce, I mean, the ace deuce, man. I mean, what's funny? Because Craig and I have been friends for a long time here. So, Craig's done tournaments with me, he's done rollouts with me, other stuff. And when I deal and Craig's playing like a tournament, he knows to be hammering that horn on a traditional table. And if you start seeing a couple of them, Craig recognizes that trend and he's like, I'm betting the horn because DJ's just throwing them.
I think there's been two instances where I may have ended a segment, a round, show on aces, and
Mm-hmm.
I was playing aces heavy.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really weird coincidence.
Yeah, but that kind of goes into even like, the setups and practicing, right? Like you have a keen understanding of maybe how I'm shooting because, we've played in person together, right? I've hosted you on tournaments. We've done rollouts together. We just chat regularly like, oh, I had this session. I did X on this session. I did Y on this session. And, you kind of have an understanding of maybe how me or, some other frequent throwers may be throwing and, when we're on, what is potentially going to hit. When we're not on, you kind of, can get a sense of that by, understanding. And, that comes from having a practice setup.
Well, this might go into and that's a good point. This might go into actually what we're going to be talking about next about pressure at the casino is, not enough people actually go up to a table and just watch for a while. And you can get so much information from just watching an entire round of shooting. I'm not saying, obviously if there's a full table, and a full table could be anywhere between 8 to 14 people all around the table. I mean, if you have 12, 10, 14, you're probably not going to wait because that's going to be waiting like over an hour probably. Unless you have 14 PSOs and then you might be ready in 15 minutes. But, if you just have 6 people at the table, that is not a lot of people to just wait around the horn. Uh, I'm saying the horn, meaning just waiting around the table, and just watching and observing. Look in their racks, but watch how they throw. You know, are they throwing horns? Are they doing dice sets? Are they changing sets? Are they just picking them up and chucking them? That's a lot of information that can be used to your advantage when you walk up to the table. And it kind of leads into today's, pressure at the casino. So what are we talking about here? Can you handle the pressure? We're talking about pressure felt while playing at the table at casinos, which can stem from various factors, both internal like anxiety or external, which can include the stakes involved, pace of the game, presence of other players. Some people thrive under this and some people find it as motivation to do so, while others may find that these decisions to be at the table, they have to, they're standing there and they don't know what to do and they're like, well, what should I do? And that, some of that could be just you need to plan your trip before you go. You can't just go there with a bankroll and not have some kind of plan, or you will lose quick. We've all been there. But understanding how to manage pressure is crucial for a positive casino experience, in my opinion. What do you think, Chris?
No, I agree 100%. I think you made a really good point there too with, the internal pressures versus the external pressures. I think a lot of people, may not actually focus on what's internal versus what's external, right? Internal, you can control or you have some sort of control over. External pressures, you really don't have control over, right? It's outside of your personal self, so it's external. But I think touching on both of those is really important because, they can affect you differently. Right. So one person may view an internal pressure as something that overtakes them a little bit more, and they might not even be concerned about external pressures. Whereas you may have somebody who's just so locked in that the internal stuff doesn't bother them at all, but the external stuff can get to them. So, Craig, what do you think in terms of internal and external for you personally? Like what factors into your gameplay more? Do you think the internal pressures get to you more or the external pressures get to you more? And by get to, I mean like affect you, not necessarily that you're sitting there and you're like shaking in your boots, but which one seems to come into play more?
No, and I think you hit the nail on the head too. When you're talking internal is probably my number one. I think it's the reason why and people can debate this, and please put your comments in the comment section. Again, send all your feedback to fullofchipspodcast@gmail.com. What I'm going to say is I have anxiety. So walking up to a craps table is a lot of pressure on myself internally because sometimes I'll be standing there and I'll have chips in my hand and I will not bet. Like it just stops you from just moving forward. And it's kind of led to a bunch of losing sessions because you finally get the nerve to, make the bet and then it's not happening for you that day. And, but a lot of that could be, did I have a plan going in? I may not have had a plan going in, but it's a different kind of internal pressure. When I go to the blackjack table, I don't feel that at all. I don't feel that anxiety at all. And I think it's because it's one-on-one, just you and the dealer. You can have multiple people at the blackjack table, right? But it's really just between you and the only person you have to beat is the dealer. You don't have to beat everybody to your left and right. Save that for poker. But you got to just beat the dealer. When it's the craps table, the internal pressure builds because there's so many things happening at one time. What kind of external pressures do you see, Chris, because you've been to lots of casinos, whether it's East Coast casinos, whether it's Atlantic City, whether it's Vegas, you've even played in Europe, and we'll get to that some other episode, but during your play, what kind of external pressures are you seeing?
The external pressures that I typically see involve other players at the table. So if you're somebody who, lets others impact kind of your disposition at the table, that's definitely a huge pressure point. Dealers can be a pressure point for some people. And, some people, me personally, I don't really let other players or dealers affect me. Now, that's not to say that I don't take notice of what they're doing. because I certainly do. I'm an observant person, but I don't let that stuff get into my head. I don't let it affect me necessarily. And if I do feel that it is affecting me, I will turn my bets off. I will let others that I know at the table that I am playing with, hey, I'm off right now. Turn your bets off and just like, let's see what happens, right? But I think the external factors that come into play are, more controlling for people than even the internal, right? I think a lot of people get caught up with what other people are doing at the table. And, we'll touch on etiquette and other stuff in other episodes, but there's etiquette parts that definitely factor in that'll like piss me off beyond belief, and I'm done. Like my mental headspace is gone, and that's almost an overlap of the internal and the external, right? An external thing affect me, which is now becoming internal. So I think, there's a lot of different facets that go into the internal versus the external, but I would definitely say for external pressures, what I see most often is certainly, other people at the table and then dealers. And then there's one other thing that I think factors in that I actually had recently happen to me that I haven't had happen to me before, which was the volume of music being played in the casino. You ever had that happen to you?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And, I am a kind of person that can consider that at some point white noise. I can block it out. I have a pretty good way of blocking that out. I've done the same thing with many events or other non-casino things that I've gone to, and I've had to block out sound. It's not that hard for me, but I can see that that's one of your external things. And I did want to just make a quick point on one of the etiquette that we will talk about in another show, but you had mentioned earlier about turning your bets off and telling the people at the table, hey, I would turn your bets off. Coming from a seasoned player, that is really good advice to allow yourself to tell others, hey, like I've been in this kind of situation before, you might want to turn your bets off. Um, we bring our casino experience with us every single time we go to the casino. It builds and builds upon it throughout our lifetime of gambling. So to tell others, hey, I'd probably turn your bets off, because most players at the table are light side players and they're trying to do similar things that you're doing, whether it's on the boxes, whether it's playing the field or playing pass line with odds. You saying, okay, hey, something's happened here and my gut's telling me to turn my bets off. You might want to turn your bets off too. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially for, you and I are lucky enough that we play with a lot of regular individuals and, maybe we'll have them on as guests throughout. And, you're going to hear a lot of stories about them throughout, the duration of the podcast. But, we are all there for one common goal, right? We're there to win money. We're not there for we're there for other reasons too, but the main reason we're there is to win money. So if, I know that something internally is going on, I'm going to let my friends, quote unquote, because, I am friends with all of them, but like, even if I'm not friends with you and I just met you, but like you're betting on me, I'm going to let you know, hey, something is off here. Like, I'm warning you in advance. I'm not telling you that I'm going to throw a 7 on the next roll, but I know something is off. So either regress, turn some bets off, pull something down. Like, I don't want to be, the reason that I'm not going to cost you money. And to me, by telling them that, it's like, okay, now I'm a little bit more stress free. And I don't want to say that like I'm, under pressure that I have to perform in front of others. Because, we all have good days, we all have bad days, but like, if I know something is off, it's that old adage, right? If you see something, say something. Well, if I know something is off internally, I'm going to say something to those I'm playing with so they can make a decision for themselves, right? If they want to leave their money on the table, that's on them. That's their decision. But I gave them information and they can do what they want with that information.
No, that's a good point. And you brought up about pressure earlier. What are there other contributing factors when it comes to pressure? High stakes, playing at higher bet amounts, increase anxiety and pressure, especially for those who are not comfortable with the potential financial risk, especially if you're playing with a bankroll that you shouldn't be playing with. Got to be able to, we mentioned this in the last episode, only bring to the casino what you can afford to lose. Are you going to lose it? No, that's not the intention of why we say that. Our intention is only bring to the casino what you can afford to lose so that if you do happen to lose it, it's no skin off your back. It did not affect you at all when you go home. You're not affected by it. You're just going to have to build again to build another bankroll. Some of the other factors contributing to pressure, game speed. Some games are fast paced. Craps can be fast paced, but also it winds up as more often than not slow paced, right? Because there's so many
Unfortunately.
bets being made. Depends on how many people are around the table. Blackjack, sometimes you get a dealer that's slow, and if you're learning to count cards, it's kind of nice. But oftentimes you get a dealer that's very fast, and it's very fast, especially if it's one-on-one. But even I've seen a dealer deal to 6 people, because I think you can have up to 6 people at a blackjack table. They were dealing so fast, I stopped and just went with basic strategy. I couldn't count cards anymore. But game speed has a definite effect on your pressure. There's observational pressure, being watched by other players or casino staff. Like if you are counting cards, you are going to get a pit crew looking at you from time to time, depending on what you do when the count is in your favor. And then just performance pressure, which you mentioned, Chris, which is, you're playing to win, but it's a competitive game. It's a competitive game, whether you're playing poker, it's competitive that way, but it's competitive you against the casino oftentimes when you're playing craps, and then also blackjack. But blackjack, it's more one-on-one versus craps. It's sometimes you can feel the whole pressure of the whole table against the casino, and you're all in it together. But sometimes that's a strength. You're all in it together. Like, we'll get more onto different bets and just where to place your bets on tables and how to be, and when we talk about etiquette, because sometimes there's less pressure at the table if you get to know the people that you may have just met when you get there, which takes a little bit of pressure off of you. And then when you're shooting, you want a little bit more pressure off of you. You just ask them, hey, can you move your chips over? I want a clean landing zone. That benefits me. That benefits you. So, and so that there's all different kinds of pressure that we've mentioned already. What are some things that, Chris, maybe you think of when you've gone, like what are some strategies for managing the pressure?
So yeah, with the pressure, one thing that I really want to touch on quickly that you mentioned is the speed of the game. I feel like that is such a variable experience, and it takes a lot of time at the tables to really understand what the differences are in game speed and how to manage the pressure of different game speeds, right? Like I'll say at my local when I play, it's relatively quick paced, right? There's not a lot of center action. Dealers are all on. There may not be a lot of people, even at a full table. It's relatively quick. But I know you and I both experienced Atlantic City. I mean, 3 and 4 minutes in between rolls, and sometimes because of the amount of center action, late bets, all that kind of stuff, it's insane. So that it comes from experience. So one of the things I would say, and how do I manage that is unfortunately playing, right? I have a lot of hours at the table that I've, logged throughout time with playing different games, craps, roulette, blackjack, baccarat, poker, all those games. So experience definitely helps to either adjust in the moment or to understand when a situation could be turning into something that I've seen before. But yeah, so time at the table is definitely one thing that I would say. And then just understanding yourself, right? So a self-reflection of what can have an impact on you, right? Is it somebody else at the table? Will they have an impact on you? If they do, then you might have to figure out ways to manage that pressure if they're the ones who are going to cause the pressure. If you're in your own head a lot, there may be something you need to do there to, get out of your own head, right? Or there's different ways, people cope with things. I know some people have just a ritual that they do every time, and it helps them kind of lock out that pressure. For me, I kind of relate it back to golf because I have a pre-shot routine that I do when I'm golfing. So I kind of have something similar when I'm at the craps table. I don't really feel any pressure regardless. So that I don't really worry too much about. Kind of locked in zen when I'm at the blackjack table. It's just me, like you said, right? One-on-one, me versus the dealer. And that's what it is. So that's how I do it. But I know you said, you suffer from anxiety sometimes when you go up to the craps table. So what do you do, knowing that you're going up to the table with that potential feeling coming on?
Well, I first have to say, if your pre-shot is anything like Scotty Scheffler, you might want to rethink what you're doing and your profession.
Yeah, right. Or, for those who understand the golf references, the Jason Duffner waggle back in the day when he would step up to the ball, waggle his club 8 times. It was 8 times every single time, and then finally hit the shot. I mean, I was watching that. I'm like, you're like, I'm like getting hypnotized over here. What are you doing?
What was the Boston guy's name? Nomar Garcia Parra.
Yep.
His
Yeah.
wrist thing that he did before he swung the bat. But
I
then
do
there's
superstitions and stuff too. Yeah.
also going to be people like John Daly who, drink till you're drunk, smoke your cigars, and you just hit the crap out of the ball, and you're successful.
Yeah.
So, you were talking about strategies for managing pressure at the table. You can choose appropriate table limits. You can focus on the game itself. You can take breaks. You mentioned practice earlier, which I think something we might get into in another episode about the importance of practice and how you can actually do certain things to help you before you go to the casino. And then just remember to have fun. I mean, when I go, yes. So now, because I've recognized the anxiety for the internal pressure, I just choose either I have a plan, and if I have a plan, I stick to it, whether and I always go with a certain bankroll, $600 buy-in. I've decided that's going to be it. It's always going to be a $600 buy-in in craps, or it's not, or I'm not playing because I know my bet progressions. I know how I want to play. And that kind of takes pressure off of you because you have a plan. Like I said earlier, in my early days of casino play, I didn't have a plan. I went in hoping there was a long streak, hoping that the game treated me well. No, you have to make your own luck a lot of the times, and that's going to come with practice, practice, practice. Know what you want to bet, know your bet progressions, know what you want to do when you go to the casino. If you're doing blackjack, you got to know perfect basic strategy. Perfect basic strategy will get you through a lot of playing blackjack. Counting cards will help you know when to really hammer your bets. But perfect basic strategy will help you get through whatever you need to get through. You may not win a lot, but you'll win consistently. I think you'd agree with that,
Mhm.
Chris.
Yeah, 100%. Same thing even like on the craps table and stuff, right? Like I always find it interesting when people tell me, "Oh, I played this strategy." Okay, great, cool, congratulations, right? All strategies win, all strategies lose. We already know that. But like, do you have other strategies that you may be deviating to, or did you follow the strategy to a T? And like, do you have multiple strategies? Because not everything is going to work all the time. So do you have other things to fall back on, right? Blackjack basic strategy, it works a lot of the time. Now, like you said, right, you may not win every session, but you also not get crushed every session either, right? If you
Right.
play the basic strategy, you're going to win, you're going to lose. It's welcome to a casino, right? You step foot in the casino, you're already a loser because you're expected to lose no matter what game you play. So for anyone who doesn't know that, there's your fact of the day. You're expected to lose no matter what game you pick. All right. I can promise you that right now. There's not a single game you're advantaged in from the outset. Now, people may argue with me and say, oh, I'm advantaged at this because of this. All right. Well, that is maybe a different thing. Maybe, some fallacy you have in your mind, but whatever it is. Walking into a casino, you're disadvantaged no matter what game you pick. Sorry for the dose of reality.
You are 100%. Um, you know, and that kind of leads into superstitions. Let's talk about it, right?
Let's talk about it.
We all have them. Some of them, a lot of them are the same for everybody. Superstitions are nothing new. At the casinos, some may seem like irrational decisions attributed to just blind luck and fear of losing your bankroll. But some people, their superstitions are based on their previous play. I think a lot of it, like we said, casino experience is going to treat you with more confidence going forward of knowing what to do in certain situations, and that might include superstitions that you have. Many players find these, some find them odd. Like, why are you doing that? Because I've been here before and I've seen this happen before. So, Chris, what are some superstitions that you have seen at the tables? And let's start off with, what have you seen at the table as a player?
Yep. And I got another song going through my head again. This is just the episode of songs going through my head, right? Under pressure, and I got superstition going through the head. Oh my goodness. Anyway, yeah, no, superstition to the table. Like, I want to say before I start this off that some of it may be just you notice it because you didn't do something, or, it's only because, you did something this time that you actually notice it. And if you didn't do it the other, amount of times, it wouldn't have happened. That's fine. But some superstitions that I see a lot. And I like to always say, I'm not superstitious, I'm just a little stitious. But with the casino games, I find craps to be the most superstitious heavy game. I don't find a lot of other superstitions in other games. Now, not to say that there aren't. So if you have a specific superstition that you have at a certain game, drop it in the comments. Let us know what your superstitions are, or even your little stitions. Let us know. But for craps, for me, there's a few main ones that I subscribe to. And the number one superstition I have is dice off the table. And Craig can tell you, because he's played with me enough, and anybody who has played with me enough, as soon as that dice or that die goes off the table, my bets are instantly off. Every single time it happens, I turn my bets off. Now, I'm not saying that every time it works, but I feel that it works well for me. And I'm okay with turning my bets off, right? And I've done it in multiple situations where I've sat off for 20 rolls and I'm kicking myself. But it was a choice that I made that I was okay with, right? So that's another thing you have to get into is, are you okay with your choices? Goes also back to not betting more than you can afford to lose.
That was the first one on my list. Dice go off table. That's
Yep.
it's probably the number one thing craps players is they turn their bets off. That's the number one superstition. Turning your bets off for a variety of reasons, and the number one probably dice go off table. More I would say more advantaged players at craps more likely will turn bets off based on like a craps number coming, especially a 2 or 12, and they may turn it off for a certain number of rolls. Definitely when the drink lady comes, although there are some craps players who are like, where's my scotch and coke? They want the drink lady. I think people like you, me, and probably a lot of that play in the AC craps crew that we'll get to is we don't like it when the drink person comes around. Because oftentimes what happens, you get bumped, the person next to you turns to talk to them, and they somehow affect your throw. So drink lady's very high up there. New players buying in while the puck is in the on position. I will turn my bets off every single time. It's something, we'll get into it when we talk about etiquette. It's something I cannot stand. I know that you hate it as well.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't believe dealers actually allow it. And I've seen some dealers who actually say, hey, let's wait until they don't care. They just throw their money down and they're like, all right, here we go. They'll count it out. And you're like, you just told them to wait, you know.
Yep.
And I know we have some people who, in the craps crew who will say, where's your bet? You just bought
Yeah.
in while the puck was on. Where's your bet?
That I was gonna touch on that when you were saying that, because it's like that's a pet peeve of mine, right? We'll probably do a whole episode on pet peeves. That is one of my biggest pet peeves is when you buy in and then don't place a bet. Like, I will literally wait to throw the dice until you place a bet. Like, I will force you to place a bet because you had to interrupt me. So now let's continue the interruption, place a damn bet, do something, because it was so important for you to buy in at that very moment. Go ahead, place your bet. Oh, you don't have one to place? Why the FOC did you buy in? Right?
Yeah, I think you've actually I know you've experienced this before where you've had people telling the person who did that, who bought in when the puck was on, to make a bet, and it just got to a point where they left.
Oh, yeah. And it's like, I'm not saying that to be mean and like bully them, but it's you took the time to buy in especially when the dealer tells you not to do it. You had to buy in at that moment. So there must be something pressing in you to make a bet that you bought in at that moment. So make your bet. I'm allowing you to make your bet. Go ahead, make your bet. And when they don't do it, it's one of the most brutal things to me. And that goes back to even like the pressure, right? To me, that's an internal thing that like now you screwed me up to the point where I'm turning my bets off and like we'll see what happens. But you had to take the time to go place your bet or go buy in. So place your damn bet. Something was pressuring you to place your bet. So go ahead, do it.
Well, what we're talking about is it interrupts game flow, right? Um,
Yep.
and when turning your bets off, another reason people turn their bets off, if the shooter changes dice sets out of nowhere, it's also a disruption to the game because you're locked in. And I know we're tangenting a little bit, and that's okay. We're locked in on the shooter who, and maybe you've gone through 30 some rolls already, and everybody's making a lot of money, and then all of a sudden you notice he's changing dice. Like, what are you doing? You're
Yeah.
changing the flow of the game. And sure enough, they're doing it to try to hit the bonus, but in reality, they're changing the flow of the game, which is the same thing as when somebody buys in when the puck is on. So
Yeah.
now that we talked a little bit about as a player, what are some superstitions you do or don't do as a shooter?
So I just want to touch on one more thing as a
Sure.
player,
Hey, that's why
because
we're here.
there's another superstition, and you kind of touched on it too when you were saying people are changing sets to hit the bonus. Some people turn their bets off when a leg of the bonus bet has been hit. And, some people, again, seven's coming because, the small was hit or the tall was hit or something like that. But it is another instance of the change of game flow, right? Dealer's got to pay you out. And they got to, pay out everybody who had the bonus bet, all that kind of stuff. Same thing with like a stick change, right? That's another one that interrupts flow of game because now you're changing the stick. So as a player, those all I don't really let most of them affect me other than the dice off the table as a player. That one kind of affects me. And then when a shooter turns their bets off, I will turn my bets off and follow them. As a shooter now, what gets me is the buying in mid-roll. You mess my flow up. The drink lady doesn't usually bother me for the sole reason that I play with a lot of, consistent players, and we have a system almost that, like, if you're standing next to me, Craig, right, if I want a drink, I'm going to hand you a tip. I'm going to tell you what I want. You handle the drink lady, and I will continue shooting the dice, right?
Yep.
And we all do that for each other.
That's great teamwork. That's great teamwork. You hit the nail on the head there. I mean, you know, even if you're not there with a crew, but you've gotten to know the people around the table, I have no problem talking to a stranger and saying, "Hey, when that person comes back, can you tell them give me a coffee?" You
Yep.
know, because when we're locked in as shooters, like I'm locked in, sometimes I'm so locked in that I forget to press my bets the way I want to. But that goes with having a plan coming to the casino, and you have to practice that too. You have to practice pressing your bets when you're a shooter. But when you're locked in, sometimes I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about any of the noise. And it's not like that I need a craps caddy, but I need somebody like you next to me, knowing that, I know he wants a coffee. I'm just gonna grab we've even had people do this. I'll just grab $1 off his rail. He doesn't care.
Yep.
Because he knows it's for the drink lady. But that's so
Mm-hmm.
that takes the pressure off of me and I can just concentrate on tossing. Because why? Because I'm probably tossing a good hand and people are making money. Chris is like, I'll do whatever I have to do to make money.
Yeah, and the other thing with that, right, is too, we go so far as like the drink individual, usually it's a lady, but the drink individual doesn't come anywhere even near the shooter, right? So like if Craig is shooting and I'm standing next to him and I know he wants his Pepsi, right? He wants that Pepsi, I'll take $1 in my rack, whatever. I'll go give it to him, but I will make a point to go away from Craig so he can't really overhear me. There's nothing going on. I will grab his drink, bring it back, set it on the rail. Sometimes to the point where like they don't even know I got their drink for them. Right. And like to me, it's all right. I did my job as a player at the table where I didn't let anything affect my shooter. The shooter's going to keep doing what they do. And then, when they're looking for a drink, sometimes I'll be like, hey, your drink's down there just when you're ready for it or whatever. Or when they hit a point, I'll be like, hey, your drink's down there. And they'll be like, oh, like you got it already? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, just keep focused, locked in.
Especially when, if as a shooter, if we're close to hitting the all tall small, we want somebody to take that pressure away from us from having to think about a drink so that we can concentrate and hit that one last number that we all need. And by the way, Chris mentioned hitting a leg. What he meant was the ATS bonus, the all tall small. Hitting a leg means hitting the small or the tall, one side of it. So either 2 through 6 or 8 through 12 before a 7 roll. So that's what he meant by a leg. But definitely, if somebody's close to hitting the bonus, or if we're on the other table and we're doing the fire bet and we've already established five points and we're all already happy because we're all getting 12.50 on a $5 bet, but the chance to make 5 grand is on everybody, and why would you want anything to bother the shooter at that point?
100%. Even like something so simple as, and I know not everybody's right-handed, but a majority of the population is right-handed, and a lot of people we play with are right-handed, right? So like your natural premonition when somebody hands you something is to grab it with your right hand, right? So like if you're passing me a drink, grab my right hand, that's my shooting hand. Shit. Now I may have the condensation from the glass on my hand. Like it's again another thing that affects the shooter, right? Not saying that, they're not going to wipe their hand off or something, but now that may subconsciously get in their head. Oh, shoot. I used my shooting hand. Now that's another thing that practice comes into play with everything where I only grab drinks left-handed now. Like even when I'm like, obviously for this podcast, it's on my right hand side, so I'm still grabbing it right-handed. But when I'm at the casino, I only use my left hand. Right? And I know you're using your left hand now. You look like a good right-handed
I
shooter
am
over
using my
there.
left hand now.
But
But you're absolutely
like,
right. But that comes with casino experience. I mean, like
uh-huh.
again, we found out over time, and now we both know, and we've been doing this for a while now. We do not grab drinks with our right hand. We
Yep.
learn to drink with our left hand, even if it feels uncomfortable, because we do not want to mess up, and we want to keep our fingers dry because those are the fingers that are touching the dice.
Yep. That and then so that's one of my main ones as a shooter. And then the other one that I have as a shooter is again comes from practice is when I see certain dice results in a consecutive manner. They might be like a warning to me, like warning signs almost going off in my head, like something's off here, something's off here. So that'll be another one that I'll turn bets off on is like if I consistently see something that I don't like, or if my landing zone's consistently off, or something's going on that I notice, I may turn off just for that because again, through practice, I know something is wrong with me or my toss or something's going on. So I'll turn my bets off there. But those are really my main two when I'm a shooter. You have any other ones that are specific to you when you're shooting?
Yeah, I mainly have two, and I've been pretty consistent with these. You mentioned the whole drink stuff, and that's kind of just universal in the small group of people that we shoot with on a regular basis. So for me, as a shooter, I am so superstitious with this. I do not, once I start shooting, I do not change my stance. I do not change. My left hand is usually gripping the rail. I will not move my hand, even if it goes numb. I don't care. I don't care if I get pins and needles in it. If I'm like 30 rolls in and it's working, this is the only moving part of my body, whatever's touching the dice and how I throw the dice. Everything is staying the same. I don't care because I know that afterwards I've made a lot of money. I'm going to feel good about making the money, and then I can worry about Jesus Christ, my knees are killing me. But the only other one I have a really superstition, and it's kind of small, is just if there's an interruption to the game flow, I will put the dice back down. I'll put the dice back down, take a step back sometimes, even turn my head away from the table and just like kind of like shake off the jibby jibbies, whatever you want to call them, the ooty booties. I don't know what you want to call them, but just shake off the bad mojo or the negative energy and then reapproach the dice in a nice normal fashion that I would the first time. I'll definitely do that if there's an interruption to and it has to be like especially as a shooter, it has to be some kind of real interruption, like whether it's arguing players or players arguing with the dealer, or there's something that happened. Sometimes you hear a jackpot in the background from slots that is a big disruption because in Atlantic City, at Harris specifically, they announce every single jackpot as if it's like something that everybody should be playing slots because every half hour a jackpot's going to go off, but they have to announce it. So, that's the kind of thing that I'll like if I go and I touch the dice and I'm gripping them and I hear we've got another jackpot and I'll be like, okay, turn around, shake it off, center myself, reapproach, and regrip the dice.
No, I like that. I like that. I think especially for I guess us and a lot of players who have, been playing for a long time and of course, there's players who've been playing a hell of a lot longer than, you and I or even you and I combined. But I feel like a lot of these superstitions kind of come into play through practice and through experience, right? Like you don't go into a casino assuming you have this superstition. Like
Right.
it's a learned experience through your time at the tables, through, a different experience you've had at the casino, things like that. And it still goes right back to the pressure. right? How do you deal with that pressure? Well, learned experiences. How do you have superstitions? Learned experiences. Do you let superstitions feed into the pressure? Who knows?
Well, real quick, I'm just going to equate it to I also do the same thing when I'm working. So, I'm a manager, so I deal with a lot of new hires. And one of the things that we do to kind of ease the pressure of being a new hire, because you're trying to learn everything and it's a lot of information, is I keep telling them, look, experience is going to breed confidence. The more you do this job, the more confident you're going to get, the less hesitation you're going to have when you're processing. So same thing at the casino. The more you go to the casino, whether it's, if it makes you comfortable to learn how to deal with pressure by going to the casino with just $100, $200, something low with a small plan, just because that'll afford you to be able to go to the casino maybe on a consistently weekly basis or maybe a couple times over the weekend. The more you go to the casino, the more comfortable you're going to get. Wins are going to come when they come. You can't predict when it's going to happen. There's too much variance in casino games to be a consistent winner all the time. But if you can learn to be comfortable at the casino, that's really going to boost your confidence and it's really going to benefit you down the line.
That's a great point. And I think that's a perfect way to just wrap up that whole pressure and superstition segment. I think we might have to lighten this up a little bit. I think we've hit a lot of dense subjects here, and we only scratched the surface on them really. But there's a lot that goes into those kind of things. So is it time for a top five list?
I'm smiling already because I'm so amped for this top five. And I have to tell you up front that oftentimes you and I think of these top five, what we're going to put into the top five, we think of it on the fly. So, we're going to miss things that, like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't put that on the list. But these are the top five movies that I remember and I love to watch. And I did, again, we'll put them in the same thing we did last episode. We'll go from five down to one. So we'll save our favorites for last. Last week we surprised everybody. We had the same drink. My number one was Chris's number two. So I'm interested to see, because this is sports movies and we all know Chris may not know a lot of movies, but he knows sports movies and sports betting. So I'm interested to really get into this. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. I think you kicked it off last time, so I'm going to go first with number five for me. And I will say, though, going into this, Craig and I have no clue what each other's top five is. We don't talk about the top five. We just talk about what the subject is going to be for the top five list. And for me, this is really tough because, as Craig said, I love sports. So naturally, a lot of movies that I've watched are going to be sports related movies. So coming up with this top five list was very, very hard for me. I'm going to just put that straight off the bat.
And we're not talking about the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl DVD. Okay, that doesn't count.
Yeah, that's not on here. That's not on here, because if that was, it'd be number one, but it's not on here. Now, number five for me, and I'm actually very, very excited because there's another one coming out very, very soon, is Happy Gilmore. I think that movie, I know it might not be a traditional sports movie for a lot of people, because it's more in the comedy scene, but it's related around sports. But Adam Sandler in that movie is hilarious. I can't wait for the new one that's coming out here very, very soon. I will tell you, it'll be out by the time this podcast airs, because we're recording this on the 19th of July right now. So the new one will be out. But Happy Gilmore is number five for Degen. What's your number
I
five?
didn't even. Again, I'm gonna have picks here that I'm gonna be racking my brain. Like, I can't believe I forgot Happy Gilmore. Like, I do love that movie. Plus the way he approached it as he's a hockey player playing golf. That's just hilarious in itself. All right, my number five. And I love this movie. I loved it when I saw it. I've seen it repeated times. Any Given Sunday. So if you're a football fan, Any Given Sunday, I mean, it's got Al Pacino, who is one of my favorite actors of all time. But then you have this up-and-comer at the time, which was Jamie Foxx. And Jamie Foxx wasn't even supposed to be the lead in that. It was supposed to be Will Smith, and he passed on it. And then, of course, they got actual NFL players in there too. Lawrence Taylor. He has a great part in the middle of the movie. It's fantastic. But the whole team is built of actual NFL players and actors. And then having Al Pacino as the coach. Just what a great movie. And as I'm thinking of this, because it's a football movie, I already know what movie I left off the list. And as soon as my wife hears that I left it off the list, she's going to be like, we just discussed this yesterday.
Yep. I don't have that movie on my list. Good movie though. I have seen that one. See, I've seen a lot of sports movies. That one's not on my list though. It probably wouldn't be on my top 5 just because of me. But this is why it's great having 2 different hosts, because you might find something a little bit more appealing. I may find something more appealing, and then we discuss it. So that's a good movie though, for sure. I'm curious what your number 5 is, honest, or what that one you left off. I mean, what movie you left off.
I'll tell you know what? I'll give it to you as my honorable mention.
All right, there we go. Number 4 for me is The Longest Yard. Classic movie. I saw that when I was super young. Everybody used to like quote it in school and stuff. So I actually didn't see it before that. Just people were quoting it, and I was like, what are you quoting? Like, The Longest Yard, duh. And I'm like, oh. So then I had to go home and watch it, and I've seen it I don't know how many times since. But number 4 for me is The Longest Yard.
Now, as you all know, there's quite a bit of years between Chris and myself. And Chris is speaking of the Adam Sandler Longest Yard, not the Burt Reynolds movie from the 70s.
Yeah, that's true. I guess there's a theme here. Adam Sandler, Adam Sandler.
Maybe. All right. My number 4. And I watched this a lot I think it came out in the late 80s. It was probably on HBO a lot in the 90s. And that was Unnecessary Roughness with Scott Bakula as the quarterback. That's where they had Kathy Ireland as the kicker. It was just the movie's hilarious. It was Sinbad at his probably highest popularity as a comedian, but it's such a fun movie. Especially, I was a big fan of The Quantum Leap with Scott Bakula. So when I found out he was going to be the quarterback, I was like, I'm in. That's my number 4.
I like it. Yeah, I'd have to go watch that movie. I have not seen that one. Number 3 for me, Caddyshack. Classic movie, in my opinion. I could quote every line of that movie pretty much for I don't know how long. And I have a groundhog problem at my house right now that I'm dealing with. So very relatable at the minute. But yeah, Caddyshack is classic for me. Yep.
Again, I can't believe
Obviously
I
a
left it
golf
off the
theme
list.
too.
All right,
Man, you
my
left that one
top,
off the list?
yeah, the top 3 are all sentimental. Um, well, there is a particular order of why I picked each, but so number 3 is going to be Field of Dreams. I absolutely love this movie. A lot of people say it's a baseball movie. Other people will say it's a movie about a father and son. I know that there was a documentary done with Kevin Costner and George Brett regarding this film, but I grew up watching this. This came out, I think, in 1989. In fact, I love it so much. I watch it with my daughter like almost every year. We watch it together, and we actually have a tattoo idea that I'll reveal at the time, but it has to do with Field of Dreams. We're gonna get a tattoo that from left to right will read from me to her. So it's really really cool. But Field of Dreams, I absolutely love this movie. Of course, big huge fan of James Earl Jones, who just passed this year, who played Darth Vader. Chris, you might know who that is.
I mean, I know
That,
who it is, but like I'm not a big Star Wars fan.
oh, okay. So that's my number 3.
Okay. Nice. And first of all, love the idea of the tattoo that carries over. I think that's sick. So can't wait to hear about that one. And for anyone at home who wants to drop your top 5 in, if we missed something that you think is in there, drop it in the comments, let us know. But my number 2, and this is a whole series. I can't pick one, so don't ask me to pick one, but it is the entire Rocky series. Being a Philly boy, Rocky is like, I mean, you grow up watching that, I guess, in the Philadelphia area. And Rocky 2, there's a scene in the bathroom where Rocky goes into the bathroom in the house. That was actually shot in my dad's cousin's house. So the
Oh,
bathroom
really?
in there, yeah, so the bathroom is my second cousin's bathroom. And then my actual cousin was a baby at the time, and he has pictures of Rocky holding him in that bathroom after they
No
shot the
shit.
scene there. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
You're talking about the
But yeah,
scene where Mickey
Rocky.
comes back up, right? And Mickey's knocks on the door and he ignores him. And he says, "What's wrong with me? You don't like it because it stinks. It stinks."
Yeah, so that scene is shot in my cousin's bathroom. So
That is
pretty cool.
amazing. You're not
But
going to
yeah,
believe
so I
this.
love the
Go
Rocky.
ahead.
The Rocky all around is going to be number two. It was almost number one, but something else is more near and dear to me than that one, believe it or not. And the other side note with that is I don't know how many times I've run up damn Art Museum steps, because that's just a thing that I guess kids in Philly do. But yeah, Rocky's number two.
It's on my bucket list to run up those steps. And I can't believe it. Back to back episodes. Your number two is my number one. So now I got to go
Wow.
with my number two before I can talk about number one. My number two is The Natural. I absolutely love this movie. Um, the whole Roy Hobbs, the Robert Redford. I mean, seeing it as a kid, I think this came out in 1984, and I would have been 10 years old when this came out. And I mean, it's such an emotion when he hits the lights and all the sparkles come down from the lights. And, I remember that was probably around the same time, 83, 84 was probably the same time I went to my first baseball game. And, sometimes they play that music in stadiums all across. And I mean, The Natural is just, that's a movie I will begin every single baseball season watching.
Nice. I'm gonna have to go watch that one. I have not seen that one. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go watch that one. But I can't believe my number two is your number one again. I
Again,
guess I guess it's good though. That's the only overlap we have. Believe it or not,
guys,
is going to be Rocky
guys, we
because
don't talk about these beforehand. We do
yeah.
not talk about our lists beforehand. We only know the subject.
Yep. All right, number one. You ready for it?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to preface this by this is one of my dad's favorite all-time movies. This is one of my all-time favorite movies. I grew up playing many, many sports when I was young. I did not play this sport that this movie is from. However, the speech in this movie, my dad used to read it to me, and he knows it word for word. I know it word for word. He used to tell me before every game that I walked onto the field, in the car, driving to the field, the stadium, wherever I was playing, the last thing, after we parked, the last thing that he would say to me is this speech. Craig, do you know the movie?
No, but you've got me intrigued. I'm like, what? What movie? What movie?
Miracle.
Oh, such a good movie.
The Herb Brooks speech that he gave to the US team before the championship when they went out there and played the Soviets. That speech near and dear to me. My dad, like I said, gave it to me every game before going onto the field. So yeah, Miracle is number one by far, trumps Rocky. And again, you said, your top three were sentimental. That's why Miracle to me is number one because of the sentimental aspect of it. Yeah, I love that movie. So Miracle is number one for me.
That is such a good movie. I love Kurt Russell.
Mm-hmm.
He is so good in that movie.
Great underdog story too. Love a good
And I was,
underdog.
and I actually do remember Al Michaels' call. That was not the final game. That was the game leading up to, you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
so that's just such a great movie. All right, as you already know, my number one is Rocky. I can't tell you how much I love this movie. I first saw this movie probably on like HBO, maybe in the early 80s, probably around when Rocky 3, because Rocky 3 was probably the most popular of all the Rockies simply for pop culture sake. But the first Rocky for me, it's just so fucking good. Just from zero to hero, and all he wanted to do was just go the distance. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
why it ties into that go the distance. Every time I hear go the distance in Field of Dreams, which is one of the three sayings, I think of Rocky. I love this movie. I love Bill Conti's score in it. Just Rocky as a sports figure. I mean, I watched a lot of boxing with my dad. I don't know if we touched upon it in the first episode, but Chris and I have talked about this before that I watched a lot of Sugar Ray Leonard with my dad and Wide World of Sports and stuff like that. So I just love Rocky. They actually usually have a marathon around November every year, and every year I'm in it. If it's one of those movies where if it's on, no matter where it is, I'm hooked. I just put the remote down. I put the remote down and I just stare.
Yeah.
You know, I just and go like you said, you've been up the steps before. That's on my bucket list. I would love to do that someday.
You're gonna come up here and we're gonna do it.
All
We'll go
right.
get some cheesesteaks and then we'll run up the steps first and then we'll go get cheesesteaks after.
All right. Well, you know, I don't know if they're going to compare with the cheesesteaks I've already had at your house. So Chris makes some damn good Philly cheesesteaks.
I'll take you. And again, I won't take you to the Pats and Geno's because those cheesesteaks are shit. And if anyone has a problem with that, you can. I don't even let me know that you have a problem with that because I will question your food choices for the rest of your life. But
I don't
yeah,
have a problem
we'll
with
go.
that. My place is Jim South Steaks. I love Jim South Steaks. I have
Good.
never had a cheesesteak that tasted like cotton candy. Not like
Yeah, they're
tasted like
good.
the candy, but it falls apart in your mouth like cotton candy. You know,
Yep.
that's the place. I took my daughter to a school trip when she was in middle school to Philly, and I convinced the dad to let's get a Uber or whatever it was at the time. Let's go to Jim South Steaks and get a couple of cheesesteaks. And he agreed. We went, and it was so good.
It's well
But
worth the
yeah,
trip.
Philly, cheesesteak, Rocky, I'm there. That's my number one. And I can't tell you, Chris, this was such a hard list to make because as I'm saying this five, I can think of 10 more that I could have put in this list.
Yep. No, I agree. And we're talking about honorable mentions, and like honestly, my honorable mention could probably go anywhere from 3 to 5 on this list, and I could have shoved one of the other ones off. My honorable mention is probably gonna be questioned by some, but we'll explain why it's my honorable mention. Is Moneyball.
That's
I love that movie, and for the sole reason, like it brings in the analytics of baseball. It brings in a lot of different aspects of it. And that's what I use for a lot of sports betting and other stuff. So like for me, that movie just hits so close to home. And again, love a good underdog story. Love kind of going against the grain and doing something that people are going to question you for, but being strong enough to stand on that and continue to proceed through it, even when people are saying you're an idiot, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. Like just believing in the system and, understanding what your end goal is, how are you going to get there, and trusting the people around you that you do have. So Moneyball is an honorable mention for me, but again, it could replace anywhere from 3 to 5. Won't
I
touch
cannot
top
agree
two, but
with
it
you
can replace.
more as an honorable mention. That is one of the few sports movies that my wife will watch anytime it's on. And we'll both watch. It's a great, it's hard to find things that I know that she'll like too, because if it's not Sandra Bullock, it's not really up my alley. But to be able to that the fact that she loves Moneyball just as much as I do makes me think I really missed out on putting it on the list. But my honorable mentions would be definitely might be a number one honorable mention. My only other two, and I can't believe I left one of these off, which is I love Rudy. If you love college football, I love Rudy. I can't
Yeah,
believe I left it off the list.
that's a
If I
miss by
had
both
to,
of
if
us.
I were allowed to replace number five any given Sunday, I would replace it with Rudy.
Yeah, I'm questioning that now too. I can't. Like, I didn't even think of that movie. Didn't come to mind. Now that you said it, I'm like, I can't believe I forgot that one.
The only other movie that I would put as honorable mention would be Raging Bull. Like I said,
Good honorable
I
mention.
watched a lot of boxing between 78 when I was 4 years old to probably 84. So I got into the Hagler Hearns stuff in the early 80s as well. And the fact that Sugar Ray Leonard was an Olympian boxer, I just love boxing. It's a little harsher movie than just boxing. It is a Scorsese movie, so if you like boxing, it's got a lot of boxing, but a lot of drama too.
Yep. No, those are phenomenal top 5 lists. Kudos to both of us. I think I'm kind of disappointed that we left Rudy off, but you got it as the honorable mention, so we'll call it good. But no, those are great lists, and I think great topics overall today with the pod. And we got to get to our final tip of the day, though. Right, the tip of the episode. Kind of wrap in a lot of stuff we already talked about, and we'll probably do a whole episode on just this alone. But understand the game that you're playing. All right. That's our tip today. Have a base foundation of the game that you're playing. Don't go to the casino and expect to learn how to play a game and in the casino, right? Maybe do some YouTube searches, right? Maybe go look at some just Google searches, whatever it is, but learn a little bit about the game before you go play the game.
Yeah, please do. Please learn the game that you're playing. I mean, if you like playing blackjack and you're like, oh, I'm going to check out blackjack at the casino, and you're sitting at a 6-5 table that hits on 17, what are you doing? What are you doing? Those are not parameters that you want to play blackjack. Know the game you're playing. And I think one of the things we talk about is we want you to know the game you're playing as far as know what they're called on the table, know what's on the table, on the layout, know what things are called and what they mean. That's what we really mean. We'll get into later why you should pick certain parameters of a layout, maybe in another show. And I was about to jump the gun and kind of go into that, but pulling in the reins right now, what we're really talking about is know the layouts of the games that you like to play. If you like to play roulette, know what it's all about. Know what the wheel is about, how they put the marble in there. Know about European versus American roulette. When it comes to blackjack, know that there's etiquette with you can't touch the cards. Okay? You just can't touch the cards. The cards are being put in front of you, in front of your bet. You put your bet up, they put the cards in front of you. Don't touch the cards. They're going to tell you, don't touch the cards. When you're at the craps table, you cannot hand them money. They have security cameras up top. They're looking for anything suspicious. You cannot hand them money. You have to lay it on the table. That's part of what we mean about know the game that you're playing.
Know the game, have a basic understanding of it. I don't need you to be an expert, right? No one's going to be an expert. It's going to take you a long time to learn a lot of these games. And I'm not even saying you have to know like some kind of strategy or something else. Just understand the basic parameters of the game and know, especially what bets pay. Like, how do you win? How do you lose, right? If you're playing blackjack, you know that if a dealer busts, you win. If the dealer beats you, you lose. All right. You understand these things. So yeah, just have a basic understanding of the game and overall have fun with it. Right. And that'll bring us to the end of episode 2. Craig, thank you as always for being the co-host here and engaging these conversations. And I really enjoyed this episode talking about pressure, talking about superstition and those top 5 lists, man. They were great.
Yeah, I know this was a great episode too. I thought it was a great follow up to our first episode. Obviously, the first episode, you're kind of working out the kinks because it's a new show, and we're nervous and we want to get what we want to get our message out to you and why we want to have this podcast. But episode 2, you're kind of easing it in. You kind of know what you want to do, how you want to go about it, what do you want the look to be a little bit, and it makes it more fun, especially when you get into deep conversations, which we plan on doing. As you saw this episode with can you handle the pressure? I don't know if I have anything else to say other than just go be great. Go be great at the tables. Be a winner.
Be a winner is true. Thank you everyone for joining us for episode 2. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, do all those good things. And again, let us know if you have any feedback, questions, comments, what your top 5 are, any superstitions that you subscribe to that we may not have mentioned. And we love you all, and we will see you in episode 3.